All right. So the three main ones that you guys need to know is the ocean zones is the intertidal zone. Much like the name sounds, tidal is referring to where the waves start crashing in, you know, where the water meets the beach, right? Where it meets the sand and they crash, the tides come in. So that's the intertidal zone. And then you're going to see in our assignment that we do later in the week that it is very important that you understand why it's so important, that area, because you're going to have certain organisms that live there, that they feed there. The water is shallow, it's nice and warm. Where would you expect to find certain organisms based on whether or not they are photosynthesizers, right? Which is what you just saw a video of, the phytoplankton, right? Y'all with me? I'm not going to go over every single thing. I will come back to it and hit it harder later this week when we do our notes. The next one that you need to know about, well, you need to know the importance of coral reefs, and that is they form coral colonies. They are a source of limestone deposits. They live mutually with algae, and they can contain about 25% of ocean life. Yes, they do have ocean life that hide within them, so they're very important. The kelp forest. How many of you remember the kelp forest in Finding Nemo? Y'all remember what the kelp forest was? Yes? Who does? Tell me about it.
It's where all the animals on the bottom of the kelp created oxygen.
Created oxygen. Now, let me ask you this. How many of you remember what the jet stream was? Because this is stuff you should have learned in 7th grade, maybe 6th grade a little bit. But the jet stream, do y'all remember the jet stream? Where the turtles were like what? They were getting pushed by the stream. They were just kind of chilling and getting pushed along with the currents. So currents do play a very important part of the ocean zones as well, and stuff moving where it needs to. The Nordic zone, that's from the shore to the ocean floor. And you're going to see when I get a little bit deeper in it what I'm talking about. The Nordic zone, or where the intertidal area is, like from the continental slope out to so many meters, and then what they're talking about is to the ocean floor from there. And then you're going to have areas where they call aphotic, or without white, and then photic zones, and I'm going to dig deeper into that, but today I'm just introducing with you. And you also have to know this lovely little thing called upwelling and downwelling, and why it's important. I'm going to tell you right now, it is very, 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 very important. Upwelling. What does that mean? Upwelling is actually bringing to the surface a lot of nutrients along with cold water. And why is that important? We'll go ahead and tell you that cold water actually holds more dissolved oxygen, and that's what organisms need, right? So anytime you have upwelling, it's bringing to the surface cold water, which has a lot of dissolved oxygen in it, but also nutrients. What did we say nutrients was? For the sake of science purposes right now, what is nutrients? The other day when I said, why is the estuary the fertile nursery of the sea? And you guys told me that it has lots of nutrients. So what am I talking about? Food, right? Food. So it brings food to the surface from the bottom along with cold water. So you got oxygen and you got food. You remember me saying before, where there is food, they will come? When we were talking about ecology, right? Predators versus prey. So anytime there's an abundance of food, you can bet your bottom dollar there's going to be organisms there to eat that, right? Yeah. Definitely. So you've got, here you can see upwelling, then you see the benefits of upwelling. Increased nutrients at the surface, plankton grows and reproduces rapidly during that time. That attracts other organisms, it definitely does. You don't believe me, anytime there's nutrients, you're going to have all kinds of organisms starting to come to what? Eat. I told you before, a way to remember it, and where there is food, they will come, right? How many times you invite a friend over, like, yeah, I don't know, man, I might be doing something this weekend, and you're like, Mom's ordering pizza and wings. All right, I'll be there, right? Kind of like the same thing. Upwellings, bringing food to the surface along with cold water, which has an enormous amount of oxygen in it. Now, what is downwelling? Downwelling is surface water that is blown towards the shore, and the shore is towards land, right? Yes? Y'all with me? So I'm using these science words, but I want to make sure you remember it from sea breezes and land breezes from last year's 7th grade science. I know some of y'all don't, right? What happens to the water at night? The water is cold or warm? It's warm. It's like a bathtub, right? That has, well, I would equate it really to a swimming pool, right? That's been heating up all day. So it's warm, right? But what is the atmosphere compared on land? Is it cold or is it?
Cold.
It's cold when you compare it to what it is in the daytime, right? So in the daytime, then you've got what? Warm atmosphere, warm air, and the ocean is what? Cold. So make sure that you understand that, guys. Aphotic, I've already said, is without light. Those are those zones that are going to be very deep, that are going to have no sunlight. We'll talk about that a little bit later, because I told you I'm always going to try to make it easy for you guys versus hard. And so that's what I'm going to do with the lesson that we're doing this week. So this is just an introduction. Now, take a look at this picture that I'm showing you now. And I want you to see how they have the intertidal zone. They have the intertidal zone shown up near right before you got the continental shelf. You see that? And then it drops. What do we call the drop? What is that? Continental slope. Y'all remember this? You should, right? I remember PNG, a continental drift, broke apart, but this is going back to 6th grade, right? Where we got the continental slope, right? So you got the intertidal zone shown with the arrows, and notice then you've got another area called the pelagic realm. Now, then look to the right. Why am I telling you that? And see, it looks confusing based off of what they have, but I have to teach it to you, and then I'm going to give it to you in an easier way to learn it, right? Because I told you the things that you need to learn about the ocean zones is for each zone, you have to be able to tell me the pressure, what the pressure is like, what the sunlight amount is like, what the temperature is like, as well as what organisms live in each area. So I'm going to make it easy for you in the next assignment that we do, but I need to introduce it to you like this. So if you look from the top, the pelagic realm, and you look along the right-hand side here where it says photic, that means there's still light, right? So if we're going about from this to right here, if you're looking on the right, you'll see photic zone. That means there should be sunlight all the way across here, all the way to the top in this area. Then look at 200 meters and down, it says twilight zone. And notice it shows you the organisms that live in each one of the zones as well. So the twilight zone you've got over here, and it says from about this area right here to here. Do y'all see that? Twilight zone. Notice it's much more lighter here. It's much more lighter here where your zooplankton and your phytoplankton live. Why? Because of photosynthesis, guys. So it's nice and sunny, lots of sunlight. As it drops, sunlight gets less as it drops. Other organisms live in this area, and you look and you can see the sperm whale. I had the kids last couple years doing activity using this, and I'm not going to make y'all do it because I feel like the one that I'm giving you this week should be enough, and mine is a lot easier. But I want to make sure that if you see a diagram like this on your EOG, you know how to read it. Alyssa, you with me? You look like you're nodding off. All right. So you've got different types of crabs too. I want you to understand that. These organisms that live in this area right here, sponge, and you probably will see an Ed puzzle that's asking you to be able to read this. So if you're not paying attention, you don't know how, and you get those wrong, that's on you. You with me? So these organisms right here live in this area right here, from this area to right about here. Okay? Then notice what happens to the color of the water here. It gets much darker, does it not? And notice on the left where it says no light. So you could have crabs that live in the intertidal zone, but then you could have other types of crabs that live in a different zone that are pretty deep. Do you see a crab that lives in the benthic zone here? See where it says benthic region? Y'all see that? Yes? So you're going to have organisms that like that darkness, that like that cold. Then you're going to have those crabs that are in the intertidal zone up here, different types, so don't get confused. And you're going to need to be able to use this as a resource to tell what kinds of organisms live in each one of these zones. So over here, this is what? The aphotic. Aphotic zone is from where? Here to here? There's still a little bit of light here, so this might be a little bit confusing for you, but that's why we're going to do practice on it. Mine is going to be much easier for you to understand, and I'm going to do that on, I think, tomorrow. Just want to introduce it to you first. This is what you guys are going to be doing on the next assignment, and my kids have always learned it like this, and it's much easier, and that is going to be the illustration for your notebook pages. And each one of the boxes that you see there, like we did with the estuary, represents what you need to know for each one of those zones. And no, I'm not the best artist in the world, but I can draw, right? Sketch enough, because scientists do sketch the continental shelf and then the continental slope where it drops off. And then I've got it divided up into the 3 zones of the ocean that you do need to know so that you get that information, everything for each zone. Yes, you will be drawing organisms in each zone, okay? So just wanted to introduce it to you for right now. Tomorrow I'm going to go over it with your illustration if it is on my lesson plan. I think it is for tomorrow. But just want to introduce it to you. Your vocab. Yes, you are going to have your vocab for homework to do tonight. Your vocab, I put it in Canvas already, and it is available, but I don't want you to do that yet because I want y'all to pay attention to me next. The next thing I want to do is I want to go over that CFA from a couple weeks ago. It feels like a couple weeks ago anyway, because I left it open for 7 days for everybody to get it done, even if you were absent, and some still didn't do it. I sent out emails and reminds and emails and emails and emails about you need to do this, you need to do this. So if you didn't do it, at this point, it's a 0, and I won't change it because I'm not going to go back and do that, especially after I go over the answers here. So just know if you didn't do it, it's not changing. But I do need to go over it with you. And the one that you took last week, that one will close. Y'all better check the date. When that one closes, it's also 0 for test grade. And why am I saying that? Because I want you all to do it, but if you're not going to do it, I'm not going to hold up the learning for others because I need to go over the answers. So if it's not going to be done in a timely fashion, we're still going to go over the answers. Once the answers have been gone over, definitely you're going to have a 0 because I'm not going to give you the answers and somebody else not get those, okay? That would defeat the purpose. So take a look at number 1, and if you don't remember how you did or what you picked, hopefully you'll understand it at least after we go over this, okay? Let me switch right here. Number 1, 2 hydrogen atoms and an oxygen atom are joined to make a water molecule. The molecule is polar because the water molecule blank. A contains 2 hydrogen atoms. B contains only 1 oxygen molecule. C has a slightly positive end and a slightly negative end. Or D forms a triangular shape. What do you guys say? It should be that fast. John Wayne, if you don't 45 degree that screen, it's mine. Remember, this goes back to vocabulary. Do you know your vocabulary? What does polar mean? Opposites attract. Y'all with me? So what does it mean? One end has a... Are y'all sleeping on me? One end has a slightly negative charge and one end has a slightly what? Y'all gonna see it next week. I hope you get it. Sam threw an object in his backyard pool. The object will float if it is A, has more volume than water, B, is more dense than water, C, has less volume than the water, or D, is less dense than the water. D, less dense, right? If it's less dense than water, then it's going to float. Okay, so if it's more dense, then it's going to sink. Y'all think about honey. Okay, if you were to pour honey into a beaker with water, what's going to happen to that honey? Bloop, right to the bottom, right? Because it is more dense. If it is less dense, think about that balsa wood I told you floats on water, or a beach ball. That means it's less dense than what? Water.
How does a boat float? A boat? You said how does a boat float?
It's made with material that allows it to have buoyancy, and we'll talk about it later. Like a Boston Whaler is the best boat that you could ever have, and I purchased one of those when I used to live in Texas because we lived right off of the water, but that's one that the lifeguard uses, the Coast Guard uses, because you can split it in half and it still won't sink. Like parts of it will still float, so it's made out of material that allows it to float.